Bill Maher returned after a month off the air and wasted no time mocking Donald Trump and calling out MAGA loyalists, particularly targeting Republican Congressman Dan Crenshaw. Crenshaw had been pushing baseless claims about the 2020 election, while also attempting to create a false equivalency between Democrats raising legitimate concerns about Russia's interference in the 2016 election and Trump's violent incitement on January 6th. It's absurd, but thankfully, Bill Maher was ready to dismantle these ridiculous arguments. Before we dive into Maher's brilliant takedown of MAGA and their lies, I'd like to quickly ask you to leave a like on this video and hit that subscribe button. It really supports this new and growing channel and means so much to me. Now, let's hear what Bill Maher had to say about Donald Trump after a month away.
So now she's leading in the poll. Ever since Kamala took over in the polls, I mean, Trump has been petty and vindictive and lying and whining, so no change.
Donald Trump right now is unraveling, unwinding. He is saying unexpected things in every rally and speech he delivers, but the one thing that we always can expect from Donald Trump is complaints, is the whining, is the woe, is me. Donald Trump so insecure and so full of grievance. That's what his entire political career has really been about complaining. And it used to be that Donald Trump was pretending to be complaining on behalf of working people. Of course, that was never true, but now the complaints are only about Donald Trump and the vengeance that he has. And it seems like the only time that there's ever positivity in Donald Trump's campaign, the only time he ever speaks highly of anyone is of dictators, is of the worst people in the world. And Bill Maher called out Dan Crenshaw for defending Donald Trump's praise of Putin right here.
I agree with, is out of step with your own party.
It's about half and half. I mean,
Really?
You can see it in our votes, yeah. I mean, it's an ongoing discussion. And Trump, by the way, has never ran away from it. Trump has always said, first of all, he threatened Putin when he was in office. He said, "Look, we're going to
With what, a kiss?
Donald Trump always brags about how much dictators like him, which I don't know why that's something to brag about. But Donald, it's because you suck up to them. It's because you were writing love letters to Kim Jong-un. We have all seen the famous photo with Donald Trump holding his head down as Vladimir Putin smiled, walking ahead of him. We know that you're just a puppet, Donald. So we don't even want to hear any of what Dan Crenshaw has to say. And especially we don't want to hear his lies about the 2020 election and the false equivalencies he was trying to push. And, like I said at the beginning of this video, in doing so he was immediately called out by Bill Maher. And just such an incredible takedown. And I want to check that out.
He hasn't conceded losing that last election. My point to you, sir, is that gas prices and food prices go up and down. But this shit is forever.
Okay.
Don't
take my word for Biden policies being responsible for inflation. You
Okay.
can just ask the Fed and their statements in 2022.
That's not the question I'm asking you.
It was all on fiscal stimulus, which was the American Rescue Plan.
But I'm saying that stuff, that's the normal stuff of politics and economics. It goes up and down. But
not that normal.
But wait, but wouldn't you concede that not conceding elections is a much bigger, more existential issue, and that he's not going to concede this election? Can you imagine, can you tell me a scenario where he loses, maybe even by more, and he concedes the election? Can you imagine him saying, I've seen the results, and I'd like to congratulate Kamala Harris on running a good campaign? It's impossible to imagine.
I don't have to imagine. I don't have to imagine any of it because I know the history of it, and the history of it is he moved out of the White House. There was a peaceful transition of power, and there was an inauguration on January 21st.
He tried everything not to do that.
They tried to do the same unconstitutional process that Democrats did in the last three elections when Republicans
The Democrats sent fake electors. The Democrats pressured the Justice Department. The Democrats went to court and got laughed out of it. No, that never happened in any other election.
You're talking about utilizing the legal process. Now, I disagree with the fact that there should even be a process to decertify an election, but Democrats did it 3 times in the elections prior to that. Where was the hand-wringing then? Stacey Abrams has never said that she lost the governor's race in Georgia.
And that's wrong.
Nobody wrings their hands about it.
That's wrong, and it's a false equivalency to sending fake electors.
Bill Maher effectively shut down the MAGA lies. And it's now undeniable that Donald Trump interfered with the 2016 election by silencing damaging stories. One of the most significant examples is Trump paying hush money to Stormy Daniels to cover up his affair with her while his third wife was pregnant. preventing voters from knowing the truth. This isn't exactly the family values image Republican voters were sold in 2016. While MAGA has since morphed into a cult-like following, back then, many voters might have reacted differently had they known. It's very possible that Trump's interference, now confirmed by a jury, swayed the outcome of the election. These comparisons made by MAGA Republicans to deflect responsibility, especially regarding the violent events of January 6th, are baseless. Bill Maher wasn't alone in calling this out. Even CNN's Caitlin Collins joined the fray, which was surprising, considering her show typically isn't known for going after MAGA Republicans. Here's what she had to say.
Democrats have done before, which is often something that Republicans, when we have them on my show, say when we talk about January 6th and the fake electors and Trump refusing to admit that he lost the election. There was barely a peaceful transfer of power. They actually wouldn't even allow them to move forward with getting federal funding to start the transition for weeks. I remember it was because we found out about a little-known position that no one in the federal government even really knew much about because of that. But also, the difference then is Joe Biden went and certified the election. He was the vice president then, and he certified Donald Trump's election and
so did Mike
there
Pence.
was not a massive.
Because
Mike Pence was pressured not to. Biden.
It's just a ridiculous attack, and the Stacey Abrams attack is as well. Caitlin Collins herself was actually called out by Stacey Abrams for saying that, so it's a good thing that she changed her tune, pointing out the work that Republicans do to try to deprive Americans of their voice and of their vote is not denying elections. It's saying that we need to work to make elections more available to all Americans, and I just think it's ridiculous that we would see any push back on that. But of course that is MAGA, and that is MAGA is something that Bill Maher was mocking J.D. Vance for in this clip right here.
The biggest threat to America now is not a nuclear-armed Iran or $35 trillion in debt or another leaky lab in China. It's cat ladies. Vance says the country is being run by them. In 2020, he said not having kids makes people more sociopathic and less mentally stable, and the people who are most deranged and most psychotic are people who don't have kids. Have you met your running mate? He's got 5 kids, and he's out of his mind. And again, it's 2020.
J.D. Vance has been a controversial figure in Trump's orbit, especially considering his past criticisms of the former president. It wouldn't be surprising if a last-minute change were made to replace Vance, as he's been a significant liability for Trump's campaign. But as Bill Maher pointed out in his sharp takedown of Trump, it was actually Donald Trump Jr. who pushed for Vance's selection, which may be a reflection of how disjointed and chaotic the campaign has become. Bill Maher landed a great blow by tying this all together, mocking Trump for letting his own son lead him into this damaging decision. It's also worth revisiting Dan Crenshaw's recent attempts to argue that Trump's presidency was somehow beneficial, a narrative that's increasingly hard to defend given the facts. While Crenshaw is firmly in the Trump camp, it's baffling what metrics he could possibly use to back this claim. Surprisingly, CNN's Caitlin Collins called him out on it, shutting down his weak defense. Let's take a look at that clip to break it down further.
Under Trump, they raised them under Biden and Harris. Regulations were lower under Trump. They raised them under Biden and Harris. Immigration numbers way down. They actually tried to stop the problem. Record numbers under Biden and Harris. This is a very easy debate to win because on the metrics, it's very easy to show side by side.
Okay,
but that's what his campaign wants him to say. But Donald Trump it's not a campaign where you just give him his talking points and he goes out there and delivers them. Yeah. I mean, Donald Trump is his own biggest impediment. His own campaign will tell you that. I mean, he's questioning whether or not her race and whether or not she's actually black at an event with black journalists. It's stuff like that his campaign is, watching in real time and knowing he's their own biggest liability.
If we look back at the end of Donald Trump's presidency, it was marked by economic turmoil and a disastrous handling of the COVID-19 pandemic. The claim that things were somehow better under Trump, as Dan Crenshaw tried to argue, doesn't hold up under scrutiny. The economy was in shambles. The pandemic was raging with no clear strategy from Trump, and we were left with widespread uncertainty. In contrast, the Biden administration has overseen a booming economy, record stock market gains, historic job growth, and significant investments in manufacturing and infrastructure. The comparison simply doesn't work. Caitlin Collins was absolutely right in pointing out that Trump is often his own worst enemy. Every time Trump or his supporters bring up his presidency, they only remind voters of how poorly things were handled, especially in the final stretch of his term. And honestly, it's beneficial for these Trump loyalists to keep talking because it underscores just how much of a failure his administration was, economically, politically, and in terms of crisis management. As we look forward to the potential debate between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump, which Trump seems hesitant to engage in, it's clear why he might be avoiding it. Kamala Harris has proven to be a strong, focused debater, while Trump tends to fall apart when challenged. Whether he shows up or not, we'll definitely be covering it, and it will only further highlight the stark contrast between competent leadership and the chaos of his presidency.
Hit that subscribe button, leave a like on this video. If you stuck around the end, drop a blue heart in this comment. And until next time, I will see you soon.